I was already broken when I found the truth, but as I watched her smile with him, I realized the betrayal was planned long before my heart shattered forever alone. Asterisk, I stood in the wreckage of what used to be us. Already broken, already blamed, already discarded. And all I could hear was her voice telling me this was somehow necessary. I need space, Ethan, Arya said, arms crossed, eyes distant. This isn't working anymore. I swallowed hard and said, space from me or space from the truth? She sighed like I was tiring her. Please don't make this harder. My chest felt empty, like something vital had been ripped out and forgotten on the floor. I said, you promised we'd talk before giving up, she replied. People change, and those words sounded practiced, like lines repeated in front of a mirror. I paced my apartment after she left, replaying every sentence in my head. I still care about you, she had said, just not like before. I whispered back to the memory, then when did before end? There was no answer, only silence pressing against my ears. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. My hands shook as I muttered, this can't be it. I told myself love doesn't die in one conversation. It fades, it fights, it begs. This ended too cleanly. Leo knocked without waiting and dropped beside me. Well, he said softly, she didn't deserve you anyway. I forced a weak laugh. You always say that. He leaned forward and asked, what exactly did she say? I answered, she said she needs space, clarity, time. Leo frowned. Those are breakup words, I snapped. No, they're confusion words. He raised his hands. All right. I'm just saying it felt cold. I looked at the floor and whispered, she didn't even cry. Leo said, some people shut down. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. I replayed her tone again. I don't want to hurt you, she had said, while doing exactly that. I remembered asking, is there someone else? And her quick reply, don't insult me. That answer stayed with me, sharp and fast. Too fast, I said to Leo. She didn't hesitate. He went quiet. That doesn't mean anything, he said, but his voice lacked confidence. I rubbed my face and said, I feel stupid, Leo replied. You feel human. I stood up and paced again. Maybe I pushed her, I said. Maybe I wasn't enough, Leo snapped. Stop that, I asked. Then why do I feel guilty? He said, because you loved her more. I closed my eyes and remembered Arya saying, you'll be okay, like she was already gone. I whispered, she checked out before today. Leo didn't answer. He just looked at me like he knew it too. I sat back down, drained. It's over, I said out loud, testing the words. They tasted wrong. Leo nodded slowly. For now. I frowned. What does that mean? He shrugged. Sometimes endings hide things. It made my chest tighten. I said, you think there's more? He replied carefully, I think you don't end something this fast without a reason. When Leo left, the apartment felt colder. I stared at the door where Arya had walked out and whispered, what aren't you telling me? My heart felt numb, but underneath it, something ugly stirred. I told myself to let go, to accept it, to sleep. Still, my instincts screamed that this wasn't just a breakup. It was a cover. And whatever truth she was hiding would hurt far worse than this silence. Asterisk, I followed the bad feeling instead of fighting it, my feet carrying me to the parking lot I knew by heart. I'm just checking, I muttered to myself. Just to be sure. The lights flickered above, and I froze when I heard laughter. It wasn't mine. It wasn't meant for me. I whispered, that sounds like her, and my chest tightened as I stepped closer. I heard Dante say, you always laugh like that with me, and Arya replied, stop. Someone might see. I stepped into the light and said, see what? Arya gasped, Ethan. Dante turned slowly and smiled. Well, this is awkward. I stared at his hands on her waist and said, get away from her. Dante laughed. Relax, man. She's free now. Arya pulled back and said, Ethan, this isn't what it looks like, I said. You're kissing him, she whispered. It just happened. My vision blurred as Dante said, she told me you were done. I snapped. You're lying. He shrugged. Ask her. I looked at Arya and said, Did you tell him that? She hesitated and said, I said we were struggling, Dante added, struggling enough to end up in my arms. I clenched my fists and said, How long? Arya shook her head. It's not like that. I laughed bitterly. You said that yesterday too. Dante leaned closer and said, You should thank me. I did what you couldn't. I stepped toward him and said, Say one more word, Arya cried. Please stop. I turned to her and asked, When were you going to tell me? She whispered, I didn't want to hurt you. I replied, So you lied. She said, I needed space. I shouted, You needed him. Dante smirked. She chose me. I felt something crack inside my chest. I said quietly, Every late night, every excuse, Arya said. I was confused, I replied. You were hiding. Dante laughed again. Man, you really didn't see it. I stared at him and said, You planned this. Shrugged. I waited. Arya snapped. Dante, stop. I asked her, Did you ever love me? She said I did. I shook my head. Love doesn't look like this. The parking lot felt smaller, the air thick and heavy. I said, You ended us before you ended us. Arya stepped closer and said, Please listen. I stepped back. I listened for months, Dante said. You should go. I glared at him. This isn't over? Smiled. For you, it is. Arya cried, Ethan. I'm sorry, I answered. Sorry doesn't fix betrayal. My hands trembled as I said, I trusted you, she whispered. I know, replied. You knew what you were doing. Dante wrapped an arm around her again. Come on, he said. Let him cool off. I turned away before I broke. I said over my shoulder, Don't call me. Arya sobbed my name, but I kept walking. Each step felt heavy, my jaw tight, my heart burning. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I carried the truth with me instead. I told myself this was the end. But rage followed me out of that parking lot, loud and alive. Promising this pain would not be the last word. Asterisk, I sat at the cafe table with Leo. My phone buzzing non-stop, my head pounding. Everyone knows, I said quietly. Leo slammed his hand down. They should have told you. I looked up who. He replied, More people than you think. I asked you knew something. He shook his head fast. Not this. I swear. I stared at him. You swear? He leaned closer. If I had known, I would have dragged you there myself. His anger felt real, sharp, protective. I took a breath and said, They smiled at me. Leo replied, Cowards do that. I laughed without humor. They watched me plan a future. Said, That's on them, not you. I looked away. It feels like me, Leo snapped. Stop. I asked, Why didn't anyone say anything? He answered, Because silence is easier than truth. That line stayed with me. Mira arrived late and sat quietly. I'm sorry, she said. I nodded. You knew too? She didn't dodge it. I suspected, Leo glared. Then why stay quiet? Mira met his eyes. Because I was told it would pass. I laughed bitterly. So my pain was temporary? Myra said softly. They thought protecting you meant hiding it. I replied, They protected themselves. She didn't argue. I asked her, How long? She said, Long enough. Right. My jaw tightened. Did Arya talk about me? Mira nodded. She said you were distant. I snapped. I was working. Mira replied, I know. Leo added. She rewrote the story, I said, and everyone let her, Mira whispered. I should have spoken up. I answered yes. The cafe felt louder, tighter. I said, I feel stupid, Leo replied. You trusted, Mira said. You loved honestly. I shook my head. That didn't save me. Leo leaned back. Nothing saves you from liars. I rubbed my hands together. So many chances to warn me, Mira said. Fear shuts mouths. I replied, Then fear helped destroy me. I stood up and said, I don't want updates. Leo frowned. You don't have to do this alone, I said. I already was. Mira looked hurt. I'm still here. I nodded. I know, Leo asked. What now? I answered. I stopped chasing answers. Said, that's not running. I replied, it's choosing peace. Outside, the air felt colder. Leo said, you're stronger than you think. I answered, I'm just awake now. Mira said, that's the start. Walked away without looking back. I felt hurt, but clearer. Betrayal wasn't just one person. It was everyone who stayed silent. And I wasn't going to beg for truth anymore. The office lights felt harsh as I sat across from Valeria, my hands tight on the chair. She said, your numbers dropped. I replied, I'm dealing with something personal. She leaned forward and said, I don't pay you to bleed at your desk. I clenched my jaw. I can fix it, she answered. You will fix it. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to, or I'll replace you. I walked out and ran into Celine near the elevator. She looked me up and down and said, you look angry. I replied, mind your business. She smirked. If you could do that, you wouldn't look so weak. I snapped. You don't know anything about me. She stepped closer. I know rage when I see it. I laughed bitterly. Then you know nothing. She said, I know you're wasting it. We stood in silence before I asked, what do you want? She replied, to stop watching you self-destruct. I scoffed. I didn't ask for help. She said, good. Pity makes people soft. That hit harder than insults. I said, you think pain makes you strong? She answered, pain is useless unless you aim it. I looked away. You sound like Valeria. Celine smiled. That's why she keeps me around. Later, Valeria called me back in. I'm giving you a project, she said. High risk. High reward, I asked. Why me? She replied, because you're angry. And angry people either fail fast or rise fast. I said, and if I fail? She answered, then your heartbreak becomes your excuse. I nodded. I won't fail. She looked at me closely. Prove it. In the hallway, Celine said, that project will break you if you let it. I replied, I don't plan to. She asked, then what's the plan? I said, focus.
Ass.
She laughed softly. Finally, I asked, why do you care? She shrugged. I hate wasted potential, I said. I'm not broken. She replied, no, you're distracted. That night I stayed late. The office was quiet, the city glowing outside the windows. I whispered, no more excuses. My chest still hurt, but the pain felt sharp instead of heavy. I thought of betrayal and said, you don't get to own me. Celine's words echoed. Aim it, use it. I opened my laptop and worked until my hands stopped shaking. The next day, Valeria passed my desk and said, better. I replied, it's only the start. She nodded. Good. Celine stopped by and said, anger looks better on you when it's controlled. I answered, it's not anger. She raised an eyebrow. Then what is it? I said, resolve. I still felt the betrayal under my skin, quiet but alive. But now it moved me forward, instead of pulling me under. I wasn't healed. I wasn't calm. I was focused. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt like I had my hands back on the wheel, steering instead of drowning, choosing direction over memory, and strength over regret. Asterisk, she showed up at my door past midnight, eyes swollen, voice shaking. Ethan, please, she said. I didn't step aside. I asked, why are you here? She wiped her face. I need to talk, I replied. You already said everything in that parking lot, she whispered. He's gone. I crossed my arms. Dante. She nodded. He used me and left, stayed quiet. She said I didn't know where else to go. I let her in but didn't sit close. She said, I made a mistake. I answered, you made a choice. I was lonely, I replied. I was still there. She said, I thought I was confused. I asked her, bored. She looked down. I hated feeling invisible. I laughed softly. I begged you to talk. She whispered, I know. Silence felt heavy. She looked up and said, he promised things, I replied. He always does. She said, he said you didn't understand me, I answered. So you believed him? She cried. I see it now. I nodded. You see it after he's done. She reached for my hand. I miss us. US ended before you admit it. She said, I never meant to hurt you. I replied, intent doesn't erase damage. She whispered, I loved you. I looked at her. Love doesn't leave quietly, she said. I was scared. I answered, so was I. Her tears fell faster. I thought you'd forgive me, I said calmly. I already did. She looked hopeful. I added, for myself. She asked, then why does this feel final? I replied, because forgiveness isn't reunion. She shook her head. I can fix this. I said, you can't fix what you didn't protect. She said, he manipulated me. I answered, you opened the door. Her shoulders dropped. You're different. I nodded. I had to be. My phone buzzed. A message from Dante lit the screen. She saw it and gasped. He's still bothering you? I replied, no. I typed once and blocked him. He doesn't matter, she whispered. He ruined everything. I looked at her. No, he revealed it. She sobbed, I hate myself. I answered, hate won't heal you. She stood up slowly. So this is goodbye. I nodded. This is where I choose myself. She said, I deserve this. I replied, this isn't punishment. She asked, then what is it? I said, boundaries. She took a breath. I hope you're happy, I answered. I'm becoming stable. At the door, she turned. Do you still think of me? I said honestly, sometimes. She smiled sadly. I'll always regret this, I replied. Regret is a teacher. She opened the door. Goodbye, Ethan. I said, goodbye, Arya. When the door closed, my chest ached, but it didn't collapse. I sat down and breathed. Memories tried to pull me back, but I stayed still. Walking away hurt, yet it felt clean. I didn't beg. I didn't chase. I chose respect over nostalgia. And for the first time, the choice felt stronger than love ever was. Asterisk, the meeting room went quiet when Valeria pulled up the numbers. She said, these results are yours. I replied, yes. Rohan leaned back and laughed. Funny how fast miracles happen. I looked at him. Funny how excuses don't. He smirked. Didn't you fail this project last year? I answered, I learned. Valeria said, and applied it. Rowan waved a hand. Or got lucky, I said. Luck doesn't repeat. He leaned forward. Don't get comfortable, I replied. I'm not. I'm prepared. After the meeting, Rowan followed me into the hall. You think you're special now? He asked. I said, I think I work harder, he scoffed. I've been here longer, I answered. Time doesn't equal growth. His face tightened. Careful. I stopped walking. I am, he said. People fall fast from highs, I replied. Only when they didn't earn them. He turned away without another word. Valeria called me into her office later. Sit, she said. I sat. She studied me and said, you've stabilized the team. I replied, I focused. She nodded. You stopped being reactive. I said, I stopped being distracted. She said, good. I waited for praise. It didn't come. She added, this level is your new minimum. I smiled slightly. Understood. She stood. Keep going. Back at my desk, Rowan muttered, enjoy it while it lasts. I looked up. I plan to, he said. You changed, I replied. I adapted. He shook his head. People like you burn out, said people like me. Stop explaining. I had no answer. The office felt different now. The air felt lighter. I heard whispers not about my past, but my progress. I didn't react. I remembered nights of doubt and stayed quiet. Valeria passed by and said, presentation tomorrow. I replied, I'll be ready. Rowan tried again near the elevators. You think this proves something? He asked. I said, it proves consistency. He laughed. To who? I answered, to me. The doors opened. He didn't step in. That night, I looked at my reflection in the dark window. I said softly, you survived. My chest felt steady. No rush, no hunger for revenge. Just clarity. I remembered pain turning into discipline. I remembered silence becoming focus. The next morning, Valeria said, strong delivery. I replied, thank you. Rowan stayed quiet. His screen stayed empty. Mine stayed full. I felt something settle inside me. Pride, clean and earned. Karma didn't clap. It didn't shout. It simply shifted the balance. I realized revenge wasn't proving others wrong. It was proving myself capable. I didn't need applause. Results spoke. And as I walked back to my desk, calm and grounded, I knew this rise wasn't loud. It was permanent. I saw Dante across the street, leaning against a wall like he owned the world. I slowed my steps. He looked up, scowling. "Ethan," he spat. "Didn't expect to see you here." I kept walking. "Hello, Dante," I said calmly. His nostrils flared. "You think you're better now?" I replied, "I think I'm free." He laughed bitterly. "Free? You still carry it inside?" I shook my head. "I carry nothing for you." He stepped closer. "You'll regret leaving her," I said softly. "Regret isn't mine to carry." He sneered. "She was mine first." I ignored him. My hands stayed relaxed at my sides. "She chose herself," I said, "and I chose myself." His face twisted with anger. "You think you won?" I looked at him directly. "I already have," Dante growled. "You think this is over?" "One day." I cut him off. "One day doesn't belong to you." He waved a hand, clearly frustrated. "You'll see." I smiled faintly. "I already see clearly." He shook his head. "You're empty," I replied. "Empty of hate, full of clarity." That seemed to confuse him. I stepped past him, slow and deliberate. "Don't follow," I said. He clenched his fists. "You'll answer for this." I didn't look back. "The only answer I need is mine." He muttered something under his breath, but it barely reached my ears. I felt nothing. No fire, no panic, no revenge. Just calm. The betrayal that once burned through me now lay quiet, irrelevant. Every word he tried to throw at me bounced off my walls. His struggle, his bitterness, even his presence, it all spoke of his failure, not mine. As I walked away, I felt a weight lift. This confrontation was not about proving him wrong or winning a fight. It was about proving I could exist beyond the chaos he caused. I didn't shout. I didn't retaliate. I didn't even glance back. For the first time, the past no longer owned me. The street felt lighter as I moved. Dante's shadow shrank behind me, powerless. And I realized finally the enemy had fallen quietly. I didn't need to destroy him. I simply stopped letting him matter. Asterisk Hannah sat across from me at the small cafe table, her hands wrapped around a warm cup. "You look different," she said. I shrugged. "I guess I am." She smiled softly. "Pain doesn't just disappear, Ethan. It transforms." Look down. "It feels like it stays, sometimes." She shook her head. "It changes you quietly. You just notice it later." I asked, "So this is healing?" She nodded. Slow, steady, and unnoticed at first. Mira joined us after a while, sliding into the seat beside me. "You're breathing again," she said, eyes calm. I said, "Feels like I can." She nodded. "Remember who you were before all this?" I frowned. "I was lost in her," she replied. "No. You were strong, funny, unstoppable." I laughed quietly. "Feels like a different life." She smiled. "It's the same life. You just get it back." I took a deep breath. "I think I'm ready to forgive myself." Hannah reached out and said, "Then do it," I whispered. "For so long, I blamed myself for loving too much." Myra added, "That's human. Now, it's your choice to be human without guilt." I looked at them both. "I can try," Hannah said. "Try." "No, you will." I nodded. "It feels strange to not feel broken." Mira laughed softly. "Strange is good." I smiled, letting the warmth of their presence sink in. "I'm at peace," Hannah replied. "You're stronger than you realize." I said, "I feel it now." Not just words. We stayed in silence for a moment, just drinking coffee and letting the quiet fill the space. I realized healing didn't need to be loud. No dramatic gestures, no big declarations. It came through understanding, acceptance, and small truths spoken softly. I said I can finally breathe again. Hannah smiled. And that's the start, Mira nodded. The real start. I left the cafe lighter than I had in months, my chest calm, my steps steady. The past no longer controlled me, and the future felt possible. Pain was still there, yes, but it had transformed into clarity. I forgave myself. I was whole again. I met Leo at the rooftop after work, the city lights flickering below us. "Look at you," he said, shaking his head with a grin. "The old Ethan wouldn't even step outside after what happened." I laughed softly. "I'm not the old Ethan," he raised an eyebrow. "No kidding. You actually look calm," I shrugged. "I chose calm over chaos." He nodded. "And what about her?" I said quietly, "She's the past." Leo smiled. "Finally. Took you long enough." I leaned against the railing, feeling the wind cool my face. Leo asked, "Does it hurt?" I said it did. "It does sometimes, but not the way it used to." He laughed. "Sounds like someone grew up," I replied. "I had to." He nodded. "Betrayal shapes you, doesn't define you." I looked at him and said, "Exactly." I let it teach me instead of control me. Leo grinned. "You're walking taller, confident, strong." I smiled faintly. "Feels like I can finally breathe without looking back." He laughed. "I don't even recognize this version of you. The old Ethan would have begged, blamed, or stayed broken." I shook my head. "Not anymore. I choose myself." He studied me, then said, "And you're not lonely?" I smiled softly. "Alone? Yes. Lonely? No. I'm complete on my own." He nodded, impressed. "Good. That's real growth." I looked at the skyline, the lights reflecting my own clarity. "I don't need anyone to validate me," Leo chuckled. "Finally, some sense." "Took a long ride," I said. "Better late than never." He leaned back and asked, "So what now?" I replied, "I build. I live on my terms." He smiled. "Sounds like a plan." I added, "The past is a lesson, not a cage. Every betrayal taught me something I needed." Leo nodded slowly. "And now you walk free." I said, "Exactly. Free and steady." The wind blew stronger, and I took a deep breath. I don't hate. I don't crave revenge. I just move forward. Leo grinned. "Look at you, all zen and wise." Right. I'm just aware now. "That's enough," clapped me on the shoulder. "Proud of you, Ethan," said softly. "Thanks, Leo. For everything." He smirked. "Nah, you did this yourself." I nodded, feeling it in my chest. Every scar, every sleepless night, every betrayal led me here. I stepped away from the railing and whispered to myself, "I am whole. I choose me." Leo called after me, "Don't forget this version's unstoppable." I smiled without turning back. The city stretched ahead, vast and bright. My past didn't weigh me down. My future waited, and I was ready. Strong, independent, free.